What's up guys, J Flix here. I'm back with another video and welcome to my review of the first Fast and the Furious movie. Since Fast X is on the way this month, I thought it'd be a good time to talk about the Fast and Furious movies, which is one of my favorite franchises. Let's get started talking about the first Fast and the Furious. It came out in 2001, directed by Rob Cohen, of course starring Paul Walker and Vin Diesel. Now, I remember being a kid seeing this movie on VHS tape. I didn't see it in theaters because I was really young, and it came out in 2001. I was 3 years old and I fell in love with it. Like, the first Fast and Furious movie is my childhood. I grew up watching this movie, and watching it now, I still love it. In the movie, Paul Walker plays Brian O'Connor, an undercover cop who gets involved in a street racing gang led by Dominic Toretto, played by Vin Diesel. And that's the plot to the first Fast and Furious. And this was before the sequels barely gave a crap about the plots. And this is actually going to be a spoiler review, so you've been warned. So the movie opens up with Brian as he's doing a test drive, and after that, he gets the tuna sandwiches and meet up with Mia. And he meets Dom's gang, and including Vince, who starts a fight with him. Yeah, a quick story about Vince. Now, about the character of Vince. When it came to Vince, I never really liked him all that much. I just thought he was Dom's childhood douchebag friend who probably got jealous of whoever Dom ended up like trusting, but he just like, I'm just like, 'cause he's there like hating on Brian and stuff, and I'm just like, dude, will you leave Brian alone, man? Like, like he was just kind of a dick. I barely cared for him, and I really didn't like him all that much. But we'll talk about him when I review the other movies. So, all right, so the race begins like they're getting the race set up, and Brian offers a pink slip to his car, and he meets up with Dom. And so Dom accepts the offer and puts him in the race. And let me tell you, the race sequence in this movie it still holds up. Like it's really fun to watch. And then there's four cars, and all these cars are really good looking, and the cars are really good looking, especially the Eclipse and Dom's Velside car. Those probably my two favorite cars in the franchises, but I like the Eclipse more though. This race sequence, it still holds up. I still like it. I think it's still my favorite race in the franchise. So Dom wins the race and the money and the Eclipse, and all of a sudden the cop shows up, and Brian rescues Dom from getting arrested. And in here we meet Johnny Tran. He's the villain of the movie, and he's also an arch rival of Dom. And he shoots up the Eclipse. And every time I watched that scene, I was like, oh my God. And he did shoot up one of my favorite cars in the franchise, and I was just like, oh my God, that was such a nice car. I still watch it today. I was like, oh my God, they literally just shot up that car like it was nothing. Like it was such a nice car. All right, so after that scene's a party scene. And you can tell that Dom's actually starting to get with Brian. Like, he's starting to trust him though. Yeah. And he's offering him beers and stuff. And of course, Vince all jealous. Why'd you bring the Buster here? And that line that Dom gives Vince is just like, cause he caught me out of handcuffs and you went back to my place and partied. He brought me back. And I was like, damn, he told him. Because he did. I also got to touch on the chemistry between Paul Walker and Vin Diesel. Now, these characters are the most likable people in the franchises, especially the women leads like Mia and Letty. Like, I love all four of them. But the chemistry between Paul Walker and Vin Diesel is just amazing. You can't help but love them. I mean, because, they're best friends in real life, and we all miss Paul Walker, man. I mean, when I found out he died, man, that crushed the crap out of me, because I grew up watching this guy in Fast and Furious, and but I wish he can probably see Fast X when it comes out. Rest in peace, Paul. We miss you. But the thing is, with Dom and Brian, they understand each other, like as the audience does. Like when Dom is explaining his dad's backstory and him, and he says this line right here.
I live my life a quarter mile at a time.
I love that line. It stuck with me since I was a kid. So now we get a montage of the cops arresting Johnny Tran, but it turns out Tran wasn't the guy who's hijacking the tracks. It's actually Dom. And you can see Brian, like, cause you know cause how him and Dom are close, and he's not really so sure. He doesn't want to been guilty. And that happens a lot when you go undercover and you really get attached to somebody, even though you're kind of playing them though. But I've seen that in a whole bunch of movies that characters go undercover and they just feel conflicted because they don't want them to feel guilty. But so I understand that. Next scene, race wars happen in the desert. And the character of Jesse from Dom's crew, he races Tran and he loses. Tran wins and Jesse loses, and he has to give his car up. And a brutal fight happened between Tran and Dom. Night begins, and Dom and his crew are about to make one final round to rob one last truck. And Brian reveals to Mia that he's a cop, and Dom, Letty, and the rest of the crew are about to go after this truck. The plan goes awry when Vince actually gets stuck on the truck and almost dies because he gets shot by the truck driver. I mean, he don't die, but he gets badly injured. Yeah, and so he gets transported to the hospital, and then and Brian blows his cover in front of Dom, and you can just see the anger in Dom's eyes when he's looking at him. He's like, oh my God, I trust this dude. And Vince tried to tell me. I mean, Vince did try to tell him that he was a cop, though. But, because, I think he didn't listen because Dom he always saw him as his hot-headed childhood friend who barely trusted people. So you can't really blame Dom for barely trusting him sometimes. So that's how I find it. Brian arrives back to the Toretto house to arrest Dom, and Johnny Tran comes and he does a drive-by shooting and killing Jesse, and that was kind of sad. I mean, I wonder how would it have been like if Jesse been in the franchise. He was a cool character. I mean, he was the youngest of the crew, but I probably would be curious to see how he turn out for the rest of the franchise. He probably not. Probably would. I don't know. Dom and Brian are chasing Tran, and Brian kills him. And in here, Dom and Brian have their final street race, and they're racing against a train. And Dom gets into a really brutal crash. So Brian rescues him, sorry about that, and cops on the way. And Brian decides to let Dom go with this line, I did owe you a 10-second car. So Dom drives off, Brian walks off somewhere, and it ends right there. And I gotta say, after rewatching this movie last night, I still love the first Fast and Furious. It's still my favorite of the franchise. I really have no issues with the movie except the character events. So, but I still really, really love this movie. Like I said, this movie's my childhood, and I grew up watching it. I still watch it to this day. So overall, I love the first Fast and Furious. It's great to me. Anyway, that's my take on the first Fast and Furious. So comment below. Let me know what you think about it. How it still holds up for you. Make sure you subscribe. Catch you guys next time with the rest.